The man from Nazareth is a sinner. All of you. This man is dangerous. But I'm just getting started. In 1260 days of Jesus' mission of the set emissaries, because Paul is saying the following if he win the Holy Lamb. Here there is no rapture, here there is Mars. University of Equi, 72 classes, 8 class. Luke, which means the enlightened one, original Luke, chapters 2 to 10. Continuing chapter 2 of Luke, Luke narrates in detail the childhood of Jesus, highlighting that Jesus grew in wisdom. It's interesting to mention this because people always, that tiresome cliche. You know, from a small mind that spends its whole life saying, here it comes. Grace, knowledge, grew in grace, knowledge, stop it. You're going to die like that. Grace for the Pentecostal is the power of God, Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues. It's not. It never was. So let's study, let's learn what's right. It's a trio of grace, knowledge, and wisdom. No one remembers wisdom, right? No one remembers that he grew in wisdom. The signature of Jesus' 3-day disappearance. He disappeared for 3 days, where only after 72 hours his parents found him. Or they found him in the temple courtyard, sitting, asking questions, and giving answers to the theologians. See? Questions and answers. At 12 years old, questions and answers. Write it down, Jesus Adelex. This is Jesus Adelex, already asking and answering questions, high level. When Jesus replied, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" to his mother. It's written, but they did not understand what he was saying. So you see that they didn't understand because they were religious, even though they knew the temple was God's house, in the Jewish view still. They didn't understand why Jesus referred to the Creator as Father, if he had a biological father who wasn't biological. But it's interesting, right, to see? What a difficulty to understand. Again, Paul, through Luke, highlights Jesus was growing in wisdom, stature, and now he speaks in another way, another triad, delta, wisdom, stature, and grace. John the Baptist begins to announce the truth with harsh words. Brood of vipers. Who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? The axe is already laid at the root of the trees, and every tree that does not bear good fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. These two texts are the most well-known, but Luke very well details the teachings of John the Baptist, something we didn't see in Matthew and Mark. Reveal.
And when the Lord made the world, wasn't wisdom there as a master craftsman? If wisdom is not the Lord, what is wisdom?
We know Jesus' school well, don't we? Yes, but what about John's school? John also had a school which predates Jesus, because John had no revelation. John had no inspiration to bring, nor authority to bring the New Testament. John is the last and the greatest prophet, and teacher of a school, prophet, and teacher of a school. That is Old Testament. It's the last, write it down, last Old Testament school. The last one. But even being from the first covenant, look at the wisdom. See some teachings from John's school, who is Elijah, revealed by Paul. First, he taught to share with those who genuinely have nothing. Clothing, food. What he is actually talking about is, what is he talking about? Sustenance, basics, survival. What he says to. What he talks about sharing is clothing and food. Do not charge more than what was agreed upon. Look how interesting. Respect the contracts. Do not use your social power to force someone to do something illegal, which is an abuse of authority. Never defame, slander, or lie about someone. Do not complain about your salary. Just be grateful and loyal. See that these are the advice and teachings from John's school. What did John teach before Jesus? Based on the first Bible of the Tanakh. So, there was no New Testament, but it was already true. Because John's teaching, John the Baptist, was outside the system, outside the synagogue, because John the Baptist never entered a synagogue to teach. See, he is teaching the Bible they had, the Tanakh. But he never taught inside. Where did he teach? Write it down, right. Where? Outside, always outside. He was never inside. But John, the Baptist, teaches outside. The essence he understood from the Old Testament, which was never the essence of the others. So, the groups of Pharisees, Sadducees, they taught a series of dogmas and rules and monitored other people's lives. Did John the Baptist do that? No. Have you ever seen John the Baptist monitoring who pays taxes, who washes their hands, who doesn't, who divorced, who didn't, who had sexual relations, who didn't? What is he teaching? It's here. To share. To obey contract. Look at what I always taught, to obey contracts. Not to abuse authority, because he spoke about this, the police of the time. Not to lie about someone, false testimony. And be loyal to your company. Don't keep complaining about the salary. Don't keep going on strike. But Professor, you are the one who told us not to settle, to seek, to grow in life. Grow in life by leaving the company. If you're not happy with the salary, leave. Go to another one. You don't leave. You don't stay in a church bad-mouthing it. You don't stay in a marriage bad-mouthing it. You don't stay in a church, a religion, a marriage, or a company bad-mouthing it. If you're unhappy with the company, you leave. It's loyalty, gratitude. Then I think the salary is terrible. I think my boss is terrible. So what are you doing there? So, don't keep complaining. This was taught by John the Baptist in the justice of God. Be grateful, be content. His teachings were so true that people would ask, could he be the Messiah? What a complicated people, right? Because about John the Baptist, they say he was the Messiah, and about Jesus, they say he was Elijah. The people are blind, right? They call the Messiah a preparer, and the preparer a Messiah. So he would reply, I only baptize under the old covenant. Soon, the one who will baptize invisibly without water will be revealed. What is spirit? What is spirit? And matter? Some people think that spirit is... No, my child. Spirit means non-material. Non-material, it has no matter. No water. It doesn't need water anymore, understand? So he will baptize invisibly without water, which is what it means with spirit, my son. With fire. No, what is written here is what is written here. Look. With spirit. There's nothing invisible about it. Spirit. Oh, really? And where's the fire? It's that the fire is invisible. Fire is invisible, but water has to be visible. Oh. The Spirit of God is burning here. There's a fire in my heart, a fire on my tongue. There's fire. What fire is that? It's invisible. You don't understand. And the water? You don't understand either? It's when I explain that the water is invisible, they don't understand. But the fire, they understand. The fire, not the water. Does it? Or doesn't it? And your mission is so powerful that mine, which he has, and your mission is so much more powerful than mine, John's, that he has the power to cast the chaff into the fire forever. And this fire here is not the fire of the Pentecostal charismatic church. No. It's the fire of judgment that burns the chaff forever. After some time, Jesus comes and humbly chooses what? To fulfill the law. Folks, there's a revelation here. Justice of God is so nice. Just as John was humble in public, John did not treat Jesus with humility in private. It was in public, in front of a crowd. And it wasn't just one day. For several days, in front of crowds, he treated Jesus without knowing Jesus. Even though they are relatives, they weren't together. They didn't spend their childhood and adolescence together. And what happens? What does he do? What does he do? Listen, he says, he is greater than I am. The one who is coming soon, he is much more than I am. As he always exalts Jesus more than himself, when Jesus appears, what does he do? He exalts those who humble themselves. This is the justice of God. As he humbled himself, Jesus goes and exalts him. As you treated me well in public, now in public, you will be well treated. I will give you the honor of baptizing me. It's as if he said, I am a great teacher, but first, I will be your student, because baptizing there means being your student. His principles are still from the Old Testament. So Jesus comes and says, I want to be your student, baptize me. Look at the humility. But why did he return this to John the Baptist? Because John the Baptist placed him above himself. Do you understand the hourglass? You turn the hourglass, placing the other above you. What does an X have to do? Place them above again. And if you observe, I am like this. The teacher here is arrogant, thinks they know it all. If a person arrives like this, they will receive this. But if the person places themselves below, I exalt them. Because that's how a Christian's behavior should be. Arrive, exalting yourself, leave humiliated. Arrive humiliated, I exalt. Then it's up to you, after receiving exaltation, to return the humility, or return the exaltation. See, Jesus comes and humbly chooses to fulfill the law, but outside the synagogues, being baptized by John in the still baptism of the Old Covenant and signed. Jesus was about 30 years old when he began his mission. Is it Delta or not? Is it? Then Luke reports the genealogy of Jesus for the non-Jews, starting with his father, Revelario. Look at this wonderful genealogical duality. Matthew, for the Hebrews, a genetic lineage through the father. And Luke's genealogy, for the pagans, a genetic lineage through the mother. That's why there's a discussion. And then they look there and say Eli. They say Joseph. But which Joe talking about? Joseph, husband or father of Mary. So it's very beautiful because one tried to do it. You see the corroboration of the thing, right? I'll write about Hebrews, pagans. Will you write about Hebrews? You have to start with the male. The lineage has to be male, otherwise the Jew doesn't respect it. Are you going to write about the pagans? The lineage is female. That's really interesting, isn't it? Let's do the female lineage. See the scissors? The Bible is pure scissors. The Gospels are scissors. Do you see? Scissor genetics. See how the Masons learned, right? From God. The Gospel, it is scissors. Shall we go to Luke 4?
Let's go.
Just like in Matthew 4. Luke recounts the test of Jesus in the desert. Preparation for his mission. Preparation for his mission, right? Facing his own ego, third power. Here we see that Jesus, he rejected being an evangelical minister, Catholic, whatever, religious. Why? Why did Jesus reject it? Shall we see? First, he rejected using the Bible for mystical or supernatural interference, turning stones into bread. Isn't it? But today, the churches would do it because they have fallen into the devil's traps. Should you remember this or not? Let's see if you remember. Who remembers? That I taught you. What we would ask from a genie that we meet on the way. An Arab Jim, the genie of the lamp, and 3 signed wishes. Remember when I taught you about if we had the WhatsApp of the President of the Republic, would we disturb him? Remember when I taught you about if we had direct contact with God. You must remember the Jim Carrey movie, Bruce Almighty, saying yes to all of humanity's questions. And then what happened? If you say yes to all the prayers, knowing that answering yes will harm the one who is asking for no. And asking no is not sincere, you asking yes. Now understand, is Jesus or is he not God and man?
Yes.
Answer loudly.
Yes.
The way you are is horrible. I have to work on this with you. I hope that at this university you learn to be more emotional. You are too rational. Reason is right. Don't worry. You get emotional. Go. Or no.
Yes.
Yes. God is man, like Altair did there. Look, God is man and Jesus is man and
God.
Jesus is man and God. Help me. The class will be recorded forever. You really can't see things. You can't see things. You want to keep this participation forever. Forever. Seriously? Your participation will be seen by millions of people. Is that what you want? Think. Use your head. Why are you sitting there? I'm doing my part here. Look. Not you. Like this. Jesus. He is God. He has divine power. And he uses divine power when tempted by himself.
No.
What kind of devil ego is that? The natural devil ego of anyone who would arrive here, like God. Just so you understand, let's imagine you died. And as the movie Onyx says, and as the series Angels of Death says, you became divine, reached omniscience, and then God gave you the opportunity to reincarnate. Like Moses and Elijah, for example, you reincarnated, you come back. And now you return with powers and vision of everything. Is it true or not? Is it true you would be tempted to use this?
Yes.
Absolutely. Imagine reincarnating here and having to have the humility. You have to have the humility to give that up. So that's what it means when it's written that he stripped away, that he set aside his ability. From Father, He made himself son. I mean, imagine a person who is a father and suddenly starts acting like a son. In the name of equality, that's what God did. God is not a son. There is no God the Father, God the Son. God is a father who made himself a son. Humility. The name for that is humiliation.
Professor.
The word humo means flesh. Look, he rejected being protected by angels when he could fall from the top of the house of God. The devil takes him home. What kind of devil is this that has the power to take the Son of God or God himself and take him here and there? What kind of weak Jesus is this that the devil takes wherever he wants? So, the imaginary devil of the wrong system wouldn't have this power. But the ego devil, which dwells within any human born, yes, it has this power because it holograms you in imagination. Temptation is imagination, and imagination is ambition. And he is there in the house of God. Why is he at the top of the house of God? Because that's where he was. Prepared to be. Since he was 12 years old, he was already there. We just narrated that Jesus was always there. Didn't he spend 3 days discussing with the theologians? So he had this image in his head of the pinnacle. And he is there, and he denied, rejected, being protected by angels. Isn't it?
Yeah.
But today, churches ask for protection all the time from angels and saints. Because they fell into the trap of heaven, the ego, the devil. I don't know if you saw on Instagram the discussion I'm having with a Catholic there. I've replied to her about 10 times, and she has replied about 10 times as well. And she curses. When a Catholic is devout, they are worse than the evangelical. They evoke bad things. It's impressive. The mockery, the sarcasm, the anger, the hatred, the threats. And I'm trying to deal with her with cordiality. And see, why am I saying this? Because what do they do there? Here, look. They ask for protection all the time from angels and to saints, right? And why do they do this? Because they fell into the trap. They didn't pass the test. When you belong to a church where you ask for God's protection, God's intervention, and turn stones into bread, it's because you didn't pass the test. Finally, he was taken to the mount. Another delta beyond. The pinnacle. The top of the highest mountain from where there. You could see the whole city or the entire kingdom. He also rejected belonging to the inferior political or religious system, using the name of God. But today, churches use the name of God to win elections and have turned churches into state, government, and power. The church today is the Vatican State. In the name of happiness, it is the nation whose God is the Lord. Look at the trap. So, I'm going to show you a great revelation for you to understand what it is that Jesus is going through in Luke, for from another perspective that's still. See how many times I've already talked this passage? There's still more to see. What is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or get up and walk? When he rejects the power to turn stones into bread while being hungry. We understand that he left the dwellings for a region that had no dwellings, called the desert. Not a desert, but an uninhabited region, hence a desert. To endure isolation and scarcity, pushing his flesh to the extreme, so that, at the extreme, the ego would manifest. Because when we are in scarcity or abundance, the ego manifests. If you want to know your devil, just be very hungry, very thirsty, very sleepy, very angry, very humiliated, very something. Something. and you'll quickly get to know your devil. There are people who are wonderful in the school of Jesus, though needing. Started to get hungry, thirsty, sleepy, it manifests, changes everything, that gratitude, that kind, loving manner is gone. So listen to what I'm going to say. Look at the size of the revelation. My God. Folks, don't write anything down now. Value every word.
King of the universe. Because he sells all things.
He's letting your sister touch his feet. It's degrading.
You didn't hear anything the teacher said.
When he... Folks, this is so incredible. When he refuses to turn stones into bread out of hunger. He is overcoming exactly what he went through for 3.5 years. This first temptation of his is the many times he faced scarcity and abundance. Because Jesus was at a feast with plenty and, the next day, had nothing to eat while traveling. And the next day, a feast, and the day after, nothing. In these peaks of highs and lows, he would be tempted many times to turn the stone. Remember when he was hungry and had nothing to eat, and the fig tree didn't bear any fruit? Fig? Do you know how many times he went through that? Because of this? Remember that when he multiplied the loaves, everyone hadn't eaten for almost 3 days. Do you understand the preparation he was undergoing? But the worst is the agony of Gethsemane, when he says, if it is possible, take this cup away, this torture, this pain that I am going to endure. And he only managed to find the strength to overcome himself, to face and drink the cup, because he trained here, because he learned here. And when he rejects the protection of the angels, again, he is in Gethsemane, because when they unjustly arrest him, tying his hands, the first thing that comes to mind is the ego. Let the police come to your house tomorrow and handcuff you unjustly, without you owing anything, and see if your ego doesn't flare up. The first thing that came to him was the ego. The moment they grabbed his hand, the ego came. But he, who had already trained, said, Peter, if I wanted, I would call a legion of angels. Now. But he only had the strength to say that because he trained here, he saw. And then he is at the top of the mountain, seeing the kingdom of Israel, or the kingdoms of the world, if you want to make a hyperbole. And when he sees the kingdom of Israel, the voice he overcomes is the voice that would give everything. Power. And he triumphs here, makes a school here, to be on a donkey. Acclaimed by a crowd in the center of Jerusalem, saying, Hosanna, Hosanna, King of Israel. And even hearing the crowd saying, Jesus for president, Jesus for president, Jesus for president. Jesus is our king, Jesus is our king. We want Jesus as king and not Caesar. We want Jesus and not Herod. We want Jesus and not Pilate. He overcomes his ego. He gets off the donkey. He gets off the little donkey, looks at everyone. Thank you, thank you. But my kingdom is not here yet. Did you understand or not? Did you understand the importance of University X? If you don't go to school, in the future, you will go hungry. In the future, you will have abundance. In the future, you will lose everything. In the future, you will gain everything. In the future, you will achieve things that will distance you from the truth. In the future, you will drink from a cup you wouldn't like. In the future, you will cross deserts you wouldn't like. In the future, you will have to feed people you wouldn't like. In the future, all of this will happen. and you will have to be strong. You will be unjustly condemned, defamed, and the most serious of all comes now. Because right after leaving this uninhabited region, which we call the desert, Jesus, a young man prepared, now faced the religious leaders inside the synagogue who removed him after hearing his teaching. It is written like this in the verses 28 to 30. Listen, everyone who is in the synagogue, see that everyone is a hyperbole, right? They were furious when they heard this. They got up, drove him out of the city, and took him to the top of the hill on which the city was built in order to throw him down from there. But Jesus passed through them and withdrew. Then it is revealed in the original Bible, the Codex. You will reveal here in the original Bible, the Codex. And today I am bringing to mind, teaching the newcomers, that, in fact, beyond all that I have deeply revealed, he was also preparing for the worst, which are the religious devils. The religious devils. That exactly at the top of the mountain. They were going to offer him the world. If he accepted, and if he continued teaching the truth as he taught in the synagogue, they would not use the mountain to promote, but to kill him. So the first strategy of Jesus, the Christ, was to teach where? 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 So that all the Jews would know him, even if it cost great. Enmities. So Jesus did not go to the synagogues because he was from the church, nor to baptize. He baptized himself in the synagogue. He went to the synagogues. The Sil and Mellow, welcome. 30 days to give yourself a chance. Luke narrates that when Peter was called by the Lord, he was disappointed because, after fishing all night, he caught no fish and had debts to pay. What else to reveal? But it is greater than what I have. It is the Lord. Even on the Sabbath. But before revealing it, make it clear that what he is saying is the wonder of the passage from Isaiah in a wonderful teaching. Also, in a synagogue and rejected by everyone there. He had to leave escorted by his disciples. I mean, when he trains, when he schools in the desert, isn't it 40 days? Those 40 days and 40 nights in the desert are the 72 lessons you are taking. Because it is in these lessons, with humility, without eating. It's not eating and attending the lesson, it's without eating. And when I say without eating, I am talking about a metaphor. It's not about eating and drinking. For you to fast during these lessons, Jesus means not writing anything. While I teach, do not talk to anyone. All the time you have complete freedom to talk, to get up, to walk, to get distracted, to use your phone. Here, it's fasting. If you don't fast, you don't do school properly. Jesus was completely focused, without eating and drinking. Jesus is not water nor food. Jesus is concentration. Jesus is dedication. And do you know what you do today? You have no challenge to your own flesh. You need to learn to challenge your flesh. So, there are no more dogmas, too. You know, but, today, we don't need, what is the meaning of the new contract? It's that no one needs to tell me to do it, I restrain myself. But everyone has a different speed to slow down. You know very well what kind of braking works there. In that ego of yours. So, you need to focus and dedicate yourselves to what you're doing. Otherwise, your formation will be wrong. It will be a defiant formation that will take you tomorrow to stumble. Look, Jesus managed to fulfill his very difficult mission, facing religious people every day. being defied, persecuted. Sometimes I look at my life and say, how do I endure all this? But then I remember my schooling. I had an education. I prepared myself to be here. I learned a lot about the anthropology of my fellow human beings to be able to be here. Life taught me a lot to endure everything I endure. So, you have to get an education. Otherwise, you can't handle it. Revel R. Jesus didn't make the nets fill just so they would grow and leave everything to follow him, but to leave a balance. Hugely positive for Peter, as well as James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Delta, men, Peter, James, and John, partners of still Simon. It's interesting that the three main students, who would become the three main teachers, had a partnership that was in debt, that wasn't working out. They were fishing. Not that day, no, it had been a while. They had been fishing for a long time and it wasn't making money. And when the nets broke, they had to help each other, bringing the little boats closer to bring in the big fish. Jesus said, go to the deeper part, but I fished all night. Go to the deeper part, believe in what I'm saying, believe me. So, the series The Chosen shows that they went there and paid taxes, but actually, it's deeper than that. They were in debt. How does Jesus do it, folks? First, Jesus comes into Simon's life, and also James, and also John, doing what? Bringing profit. Everyone only preaches and only sees the miracle of the fish. Miracle of the fish, multiplication of the fish. This isn't about fish, no, this is about money. If they were going to stop fishing, to follow, what did he do? He injected a financial boost. Because there was a wife to take care of, a child to take care of, a mother-in-law to take care of, a house to take care of. They had a partnership, a business. They were dedicated, they had boats. They had to finish buying, they had to pay for the boat. What does Jesus do? He puts a lot of money in their hands and says, now follow me. Daring. What a powerful God. Isn't it beautiful? You see, when wisdom arrives, my child. Can you imagine? Fishermen, when they sell the little fish, it's just a small amount of money. Here he filled nets. Nets, they didn't know where it all came from. Fish, huge fish. Can you imagine? The series about the old man shows a little bit, saying that Quintus was surprised at how they managed to get money to settle a debt. But it was a small tax debt. But the truth is, why does Jesus perform this miracle in their lives? It's so that the three who believed in him, the God of coherence. You have two choices, to think small or to think big, like Akul. Think big like me. Go on. Come on, let's create an army of wisdom in the world. What does it mean to think big? Every miracle of Jesus has a purpose, citizen. Didn't you see when he walked on water? Oh, how beautiful. That's God. He does what he wants. No, it's not that he does what he wants. It's because they weren't believing in him after he multiplied the loaves and fishes. And the bread and fish? Because otherwise the crowd would have died. Everything has a reason. Every miracle has a story. Even the woman with the issue of blood, what was that for? And Jairus' daughter, what was that for? Everything has a reason, I taught you. Everything, every miracle of Jesus has a reason. Even the centurion, because he was very important. And he would simply defend Jesus in moments. Ideal of Roman revolt. Because it was with the help of these characters that Jesus was able to accomplish what he needed to do. When he heals Jairus' daughter, why does he heal her? Because he brings her back to life. Because Jairus is the ruler of the synagogue, my son. And then, Jairus will have such an important role in defending Jesus' life. Did you learn? I don't know. I'm looking here. I'm seeing. Maybe Carmen is understanding. Eduardo is understanding. No, not Urantia. Not Urantia. Even Maria, I've already explained this Urantia. Marcos, let's understand. Let's appreciate. Who is understanding? I want to see your faces. Oh, no, 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 no. That's not a face that is understanding. A face that is understanding should be drenched in tears. Do you know why? Not even where you are understanding. Here I am looking here, all dry, just like a desert. They are not understanding. You don't know what it is to make a society all wrong. And Jesus appears and takes money out of the water. And Jesus did that many times, taking money out of the water. Taking money out of the water. And that financial abundance he gave into the hands of the three. Gave Zebedee the courage to release his sons. Because then Zebedee looked and said, look. They went there to sell the fish, got good money, paid all the debts and said, I'll stay here. Continuing with the boat business. You can follow him because he really is incredible. But Simon, when he saw all that money, because for a fisherman, fish is. For you it's just fish, for him it's money, my son. Simon was scared. The Bible says he was afraid. Do you know what Jesus said to him? First thing, do not be afraid. Can you imagine the fear it caused? Who is this man? I fished all night. How much I know about the waters, the seas. Fishing my whole life. And here, do not be afraid. From now on, you will be a fisher of men. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It calms the heart. That's right, Maria. Look how beautiful that is. Not Maria Aparecida. She understood. It's more than we imagined. That's right. Many sick people are healed. Among the most well-known highlights the paradise, which descended the roof of a leper. Again, right? In Luke's version, whom Jesus asked to, instead of following him, go to the temple. Fulfill the Bible. Why did Jesus do that? Reveal. It was not my cloak that healed you. Your faith healed you. See the trap? The religious system will use this out of context to prove that Jesus was of the Torah, mystical, religious too. However, Christ did this so that everyone in the temple and everyone in the synagogues would know about him. Why does he say, go there to the temple? Because it is still the Old Testament, and because he wants the churches to know about him. Isn't that right? Now, the question is, did Jesus go there with him to the church?
No.
Jesus went there to the temple. I am here, I am. Jesus of Nazareth, and I came here to say that I healed this man by the power of God. That's how it is. Paul, through Luke, accurately recounts the calling of Simon and the calling of Levi, Matthew, which is charming, because Luke's biography is much more detailed than his own. Did you know that? It's interesting how Matthew doesn't speak as well of himself as the other did, as Luke did. And then the most interesting part, I who was there, didn't speak as well of myself as the other who wasn't there. Interesting, right? Jesus refused the religious people at Matthew's house, who offered him a banquet. This is very important. Matthew was so happy to be called by Jesus, previously a tax collector, that he gave him a banquet. But the Pharisees were there arguing, as we've already seen, and in Luke's version, Jesus said, and no one, after drinking the old wine, prefers the new, for he says, the old wine is better. How to understand this? Revealed.
The best wine I've ever tasted in my entire life.
And today the churches say yes, the old wine is better. Isn't it? Yes, that's very true. My God. When I read these texts, I keep asking myself, where can we tackle the system? In a conversation with a religious leader, where do we start? That anyone can give, right? Any chapter, right? Any story, any passage of Jesus has a beating.
It does.
There's Peter, and there's Paul. Isn't it Peter, Mark, and Paul, Luke? There's stoning, and there's Paul. The older wine is more valued because it has a better flavor than the new one, which still needs to mature. Isn't the old wine better? Isn't it more expensive? Okay, looking at it from this perspective then, isn't it better to stick with the Old Testament, which is more enjoyable? But isn't it said here? Isn't it better? Isn't Jesus speaking? So let's understand the text. The custom of the old prevents considering the quality of the
No.
That's why the Jews rejected the.
No.
Do you think the Jews rejected the new because they were used to the old wine, which is more expensive? And isn't it more expensive? Who is the one to have just this ship? Mom, just this here? It's all very beautiful, but what is this compared to the size of my universal church? That is TV, that has newspapers, that has more branches than McDonald's. My church is Catholic, which is a state, which is simply the richest institution on earth, even a partner of Ferrari, Fiat, Santander, Bradesco. Those who are accustomed to the structures of the old system, to the old concepts, and are not willing to change, will never accept the novelty of the new wine. New contract, Jesus or Christ or X. That's why people don't want it, because it's new. I'm teaching this here, you are amazed, but tomorrow or the day after you'll say, how difficult it is, Professor. I went to talk to people, they said you are too new, they said the X is too new, they said everything new can only be heresy, because it was vaccinated, prophesied, that in the last days only bad and heretical things would come, Professor. What argument do I have? Ah, you're here saying the revelation is beautiful, but you're not seeing the response. You're not seeing it, they like the old wine. The X is the new wine. They didn't accept Jesus because he was new wine. It was a 30-year-old wine. So, old stigmas, old dogmas, old customs, hardened conscience. Luke 6, Luke remembering that it means the enlightened one. Here in chapter 6, he has the same account of the teaching of Jesus in Matthew 5, 6, and 7, which are wrongly taught as the Sermon on the Beatitudes. In fact, it is the teaching of fullness of evolution, always speaking dually, so that our conduct is always acting as if we didn't have what we have, not using our gifts and financial, physical, or mental conditions to be better than others. If you ask me to summarize, there it is. The summary of everything Jesus taught in Luke's version. Chapter 6, that's it. At every moment, he is saying, the right thing is for you to make the hourglass. The X, the duality. Cross, turn. Metanoia. What? Do I have? I will act as if I didn't have. Am I? I will act as if I am not. As if I were not. Can. I will act as if I couldn't. That's how we overcome ego. Understand? And then he signs in Delta. When he talks about the blessing, blessing is the action of good. He says, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, something that no one understands in the system. And I reveal the Codex in the original, but this one I won't talk about. I'll let you go there to remember how to shake a bag, how to grab a sack, and shake it to fit more. It will be given to you, because what you measure will be measured, and what you judge will be judged. The student, this phrase of Jesus, it seems like he is speaking to us here. It's impressive, but it's for us. It's for everyone. Look at this here. The student is not above his teacher, but everyone who evolves can be like their teacher. But of course, that's impossible. Then it talks about trees, proving that no one changes. It only reveals itself in verse 43. He says, for example, no good tree bears bad fruit. No bad tree bears good fruit. It seems very simple, but it's so difficult to understand that people don't change. If at the very beginning of the relationship, you saw that it's like this, guess what? It will be like this forever. If at the beginning the boss is not generous, he will never be generous. If at the beginning, in the first days, you're living in a place, problems start. There will always be problems.
What do you think those people who have never been anything, nothing, never did anything, produced nothing, will produce here? No one changes.
So he compares those who live singing and praising in churches to a house built on sand, who only worship with their lips. What does this have to do with sand? Because when the storm comes, the test, the truth about their worship is revealed. That's what he's saying. The house looks very beautiful, right? Praises, talks, sings, worships, raises hands, kneels. It's beautiful, right? But then the truth of each one, of the faith of each one, we only know. In the hurricane, in the typhoon, in the earthquake.
Yes.
Do you understand? Luke 7, just like Matthew 8, talks about the military commander of 100 men who he said had the greatest faith in Israel. Even being a Roman pagan who worshipped gods, who did not know the God of Israel. But the greatest faith in Israel was his. As he approached the gate of the city of Nain, a funeral was coming out, the funeral of the only son of a widow, and hundreds of people were with her. Seeing her, the Lord had compassion for her and said, "Do not cry."
See how few words and greater actions. Jesus said, "Don't cry." Then he approached and touched the coffin, and those carrying it stopped. Then Jesus said, "Young man, get up." The words of Jesus are, "Don't cry to her." And then to the coffin, "Get up, young man." The young man got up from the coffin. Can you imagine the shouting? Sat up and began to talk. Even though it was a great miracle, I want you to understand. He conquered death. He's already here. He's the Messiah. He conquered death. What about the issue of resurrection? Here, even though it was a great miracle, since the young man had just passed away. Still, the religious system said it was just witchcraft. Others said that the young man didn't die, he just was sleeping. That's the problem. It's that this young man had just died, and they had already prepared the wake, held the wake, were having the wake, carrying the coffin. Then Jesus goes there and raises him. Then it didn't matter. That's why the resurrection of Lazarus is the resurrection, and the resurrection of Jesus is the resurrection. I would even say that the resurrection of Lazarus is the most incredible miracle of all. More than the death of Jesus, because Jesus died, but didn't appear to anyone. He only appeared to the insiders, so it had no value, none. He never appeared, never won anyone's faith, didn't show up in the city center. And this young man here had just died. People will say he was alive, cardiac arrest, and he came back. So it's not that. So in Jewish belief, I taught you in the Angel of Death series 72 hours, right? No, Lazarus. After 72 hours, you come back to eat. Take a bath, put on clothes, and live life normally as before. Let's agree. That's something, right? That's the greatest miracle of all. Yes or no? Now, there's one more thing I didn't write. That won't be in the booklet. That won't be in the 4th edition. But whoever watches here, the university will know. It's interesting that Jesus waits to perform this resurrection exactly when he knows that they are already on their way. The students of John or the Baptist, to ask him if he is the Messiah. And why? Because the old scripture, the Testament, said that the Messiah had to conquer death. It's just that Jesus had already done everything here, except conquer death. Jesus seizes and looks at the funeral. The Bible says this. He had compassion for the woman. It's not quite like that. He had compassion for all funerals, and for all the women, and for all the people who were crying, because every day there are people dying. So, the Bible is very poetic. You have to understand. Did Jesus multiply loaves and fishes just for those people? Did that hunger cease forever? Remember that he even later teaches, saying, in John we will see this, he said, you will always be hungry and always be thirsty. But if you eat my bread, if you drink my water, what is he trying to say? What I'm doing here for you is pointless, right? You will eat this bread here, the bread will run out, and you will be hungry again. Doesn't Jesus have compassion for other people? Does Jesus only have compassion for the widow of Nain? Is that it? Oh, there's a funeral coming. It just so happened that I'm entering the city and she's leaving, so I feel sorry. It's not like that. It's beautiful. The text is poetic. The text is lovely. It says Jesus was moved. So is the text lying? No, Jesus was moved. But it wasn't because he had compassion that he performed the miracle. That's where the mistake is. Then in churches, they will say, Jesus had compassion. Jesus doesn't perform miracles because he has compassion. That idea is wrong. And that's why in the church, people keep tugging at his hem. Lord Jesus, and they pray and cry and roll around and kneel and fast and take the oil and take the water and pray again and climb the mountain and descend the mountain. They're trying to move his heart. Raise your hand, cry, pray again. To see if I can touch his heart. Now I touch. Now I know. This is the Jesus who was moved by the widow. Will he be moved by me too? He will be moved by me. He will. My situation is so difficult. Our situation is always the worst, right? Ours is always the worst. Ours is always the most important. Have you ever seen when someone cuts in line? It's very rare to see someone say, hey, put her in front of me because she needs it more than I do. It's hard, right? It's hard, right? What I'm trying to say, I don't know if you understand, is that Jesus didn't heal, didn't bring life, didn't resurrect because he felt compassion. It's no use trying, my son. Look. No tears come out. He knows the pain of a mother who loses her only son. That's one thing. Another thing is his justice, above all. So that's the teacher, the one you sometimes don't value, who teaches in the world, God does not interfere. Because what is he interfering with here? Because John's disciples are coming. Then, when John's disciples arrive, right after he enters Nain, already in Nain, the disciples ask, are you the Messiah? We just want to tell John if it's you, or if we have to wait for another. Then he said, I just brought back to life a dead boy. Do you understand the significance? He said, the blind see the deaf, hear the lame, walk, and the dead are raised. Because if it weren't for that last one, it wouldn't have value. Do you understand? Then they would go to John and say, "Look, he heals." But what about the prophecy? You remember that John was a master of a very old testamentary school. He was well versed in the passages of Isaiah, of Amos. Do you understand or not? So, reading the Old Testament passages, he would read like this. He would say, "Look here, Jeremiah. Look, Isaiah. The resurrection is missing." I don't know. Could it be that this relative of mine is really the Messiah? Then Jesus said, "I just brought a young man back from the dead." Did you understand? So it's not out of compassion because that widow was better than the others. Is that it? Because she prayed more. So these things are very important to understand. Then, citing the passage of the pure nard poured by the woman in another chronological order, it's interesting that Luke places a different order on this. Paul, through Luke, reveals some things about this day of the pure nard. Jesus was at the house of a biblical Pharisee who invited him to a banquet. 2. The woman pours the very expensive perfume on his head, cries at his feet, and wipes his feet with her hair. So far, so good, right? Then the legalistic Pharisee, even basing more on Luke, the series chosen showed this scene. How can I believe in you if you allow a woman, and still a sinner, to touch you? Then Jesus responds, "Listen, you did not greet me with a kiss, but this woman, since I entered here, she hasn't stopped kissing my feet. Second, you did not anoint my head with oil, but she poured perfume on my feet." It's interesting. But the perfume was on the head when Jesus reclined. Both accounts say this, but here it also says perfume on the feet. Small detail, it doesn't matter. Now, what matters is that it says Judas confronted Jesus there. But this case here was not chronological. Initially, it was at the end of Jesus' life, and Luke places this case very early. The chronology is wrong, which very likely wasn't Paul, because Paul was detail-oriented. So, what must have happened? The fragment found, separated, and at the time of compiling the fragments, they placed it in a disordered sequence. They messed up the chronology. But what is interesting is that there, in the other Gospels, Matthew and Mark, it really speaks in the plural. It doesn't just say that Judas confronted Jesus because of the sinful woman. It says they. They. Who? Judas and who? Now, Luke makes it clear, a Pharisee. So there was a Pharisee or Pharisees along with Judas. And the series The Chosen does this. It does a very good historical job. And what does the director Dallas do? He takes the Pharisee and puts him together with Judas. But it doesn't show Judas confronting Jesus like the original Bible, Codex, shows, unfortunately. But that's how it works. Some see it here, others see it there. And if the original Codex Bible had been Dallas's inspiration, it would have been perfect. Who is happier? The one forgiven a debt of 500 or a debt of 50. Look at this beautiful thing, folks. My God. Some of Jesus's metaphors are like this. Sometimes we find ourselves groping and trying to understand. If you don't go to the encyclopedia, don't go to the culture, or don't go to the Codex Bible, today you have the Codex Bible for you. If you don't go here, you can't understand the value of the metaphor. Because he tells some stories, and they seem like just random little stories. But every little story, just like every miracle, has a context. It's just the story of the little seed. It's just the story of the little tree. It's just the story of the little sheep, right? Then you say, it's just a story. But there's a context of something that, exactly in that environment. Fits like a glove. Look at that glove. Simon answered, the one who had the larger debt of 500. Who is answering? Simon. Jesus said to him, correct, Simon. See what a leader is, right? There are so many students there who participates and gets it right. Who participates and gets it right? Simon. Simon. He said. Correct, Simon. You spoke. Well judged. Well. Who was happier? The one with the debt of 500 or the debt of 50? Forgiven. Put that reveal in what place? Nard, not leaving. Your sister, touching his feet, is degrading. You didn't hear anything the teacher said. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven because she approved. Without great orthos, approvals, great approval, great, naplo unpack. Proved her great love for the truth. But the one who has been forgiven little, loves little. Folks, these days, I investigated some people without telling them I was investigating. I love investigating. And I wanted to know why some people are so devoted to everything. I teach in X, unlike most other people. And do you know what I found out? Why are there people so devoted in X, unlike the majority? Because the debt was greater. There were people who were about to die, some sick, others in debt, others in depression. Some, I would even say many, thinking of taking their own lives. But when they found Jesus the Christ, today they love greatly. They pour out, they spill their expensive perfume, their tears, their hair. They wipe every day because they know where they came from, because they know where were they taken from. One man had a debt of 500, the other of 50. The question was, who will be happier to have their debt forgiven? Simon Peter answered, the one with 500. He said, this woman, you may call her a sinner, Pharisee. But what she did here demonstrates much more love than you, because her debt was greater. And in seeking and finding the truth, the action she took not only forgave all her sins, but reveals that she is doing all this exactly because she knows that she was forgiven. Exactly because she is expressing love and gratitude proportional to the size of the debt she had and was forgiven. And what is more interesting is that when Jesus mentions this, which Luke talks about that the others do not, we have to remember that the nard was worth a year's salary. And let's imagine it was worth exactly 500 denarii. And Jesus uses the metaphor exactly to say the following. The price of the perfume was the price of her sins that you judge. And the perfume paid off the entire debt. What she spent on the perfume, she paid for her sins. Each kiss, each tear. And every cent, every denarius she spent, disregarding her love for me, expressing the opportunity to have her mistakes erased. I end lesson 8 by asking, do you love little or much? Was your debt 50 or 500? Pay close attention to the words I said at the end, because at the end I said, I conducted an investigation. And I came to the conclusion that it's the same story. The same story is before us. Do you know why you're here? Why Clarice is crying? Why Maria is there? Do you know why Helene is here? Do you know why Lenin left everything in Curitiba to live here? Did Clarice leave everything in Brasilia to live here? Clarice was simply in her life with her things the day she heard me here on that day. And here comes Marcos on that day. She abandoned everything and followed the truth. And not only that, she even left everything to live here. And it's not about living here in the mothership. It's about living in front of the mothership with her life, with her child, with her things, her salary, and serving. Having the pleasure of the truth every day, being here with us every day. If you still don't understand, ask yourself why these people did this, why Hilaire did this. Why do these people do this? Why is Winston here every day? For free, without a salary? The answer can only be one. Because the debt was 500 denarii and it was forgiven. It's too beautiful. That's why you won't change people. That's why it won't help for you to say, come, let's go together. Let's do more. Come to school. Come to the meeting. Let's do it. Go live. Lose the shame. Lose the shyness. Hey, help. Hey, donate. Hey, support. Hey, start the school. Hey, do the work. Hey, produce. It won't help. Because it's at the root. The debt is at the origin. The debt brought you here. And depending on the size of the debt, it's the size of your worship. Your worship today, according to the debt that was paid. That's why every time I see someone very dedicated, I already know there was a big debt paid. When I see someone not so dedicated, whom you have to beg to be together, do you know who these people are? Those people who look at me and say, do you know how many times I've heard that in 12 years? Actually, I already knew these things. Then, when I met you, Professor, it turned out that it clicked, you know? It fit. So, today, I'm here with you. I'm here with you today. From a small life. Now small. Good evening. 1,260. 1,260 days of Jesus. Mission of the sent ones. Days of Jesus. Because Paul is saying the following here. There is no rapture. Here there is Mary.